Welcome to day 26 of our walk through Romans. Today, we're in chapter 11, verses 11 through 24. If you haven't been to the Lord yet in prayer, please start there. So I ask, did they stumble in order that they might fall? By no means. Rather, through their trespass, salvation has come to the Gentiles, so as to make Israel jealous. Now, if their trespass means riches for the world, and if their failure means riches for the Gentiles, how much more will their full inclusion mean? Now I'm speaking to you Gentiles. Insomuch then, as I am an apostle to the Gentiles, I magnify my ministry, in order somehow to make my fellow Jews jealous, and thus save some of them. For if their rejection means the reconciliation of the world, what will their acceptance mean but life from the dead? If the dough offered as firstfruits is holy, so is the whole lump. And if the root is holy, so are the branches. But if some of the branches were broken off, and you, although a wild olive shoot, were grafted in among the others, and now share in the nourishing root of the olive tree, do not be arrogant towards the branches. If you are, remember, it is not you who support the root, but the root that supports you. Then you will say, branches were broken off so that I might be grafted in. That is true. They were broken off because of their unbelief. But you stand fast through faith. So do not become proud, but fear. For if God did not spare the natural branches, neither will he spare you. Note then the kindness and the severity of God. Severity toward those who have fallen, but God's kindness to you, provided you continue in his kindness. Otherwise, you too will be cut off. And even they, if they do not continue in their unbelief, will be grafted in. For God has the power to graft them in again. For if you were cut off from what is by nature a wild olive tree, and grafted, contrary to nature, into a cultivated olive tree, how much more will these, the natural branches, be grafted back into their own olive tree? Let's review. Paul here shows how Israel's stumbling opens up the door to salvation for Gentiles and makes Israel jealous. The story isn't finished just yet for Israel. When they rejected Jesus, this resulted in the rest of the world getting the opportunity to be part of God's redemption story, as this was God's plan all along. But reasoning in the opposite direction, it will be an even greater blessing when Israel is saved. Paul was set apart by Jesus with a special ministry to the Gentiles, but Paul is always hoping that through his Gentile ministry, that Jews will be saved. He's hoping that his Jewish brothers will see the relationship that Gentiles have with God, become jealous, and it will spur them to repentance and faith in Jesus. Paul sees that in his day and age, Israel has mostly rejected Jesus, but he looks forward to a time when their acceptance of Jesus in large numbers would bring life and resurrection. He offers two metaphors, one being the first fruit dough offered in sacrifice, making the whole lump of dough holy, and second, a holy root, making the branches holy. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob are likely the root or the first fruit dough. Yet, as he has already laid out in chapters 9 through 10, not all of ethnic Israel was part of the promise. Some of the branches were broken off, and the Gentiles were grafted into the promise. We as Gentiles who are grafted in should not become arrogant towards Israel in their unbelief. Rather, we should become more God-fearing and respect God's sovereignty and his grace that we have been spared that same fate. Again, our salvation is through faith, not works, so we have nothing to boast about. And if God can graft in Gentiles onto the root of the promise, how much more can he graft back in ethnic Jews who trust Jesus in faith? Thanks again. As always, if you enjoyed this video, please press the like button below, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you can get all the latest content. We'll see you tomorrow.